Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. Honestly, I kind of struggle with making a craft for this time of year, or really for this holiday. I'm not the biggest fan of Valentine's Day as we know it. I would much rather it be a little bit darker and weird, a little more Victorian hair locket, and a little less Hallmark, if you know what I mean. But I also want to give y'all something fun to do, so I gotta find a balance. I was at the craft store and I saw this heart box, and I knew I wanted to spook it up a little bit. So today I'm showing you how to take a Valentine's Day heart box from garish to ghoulish. This is a fairly easy craft, but it may take a little bit longer to complete, maybe a couple of days, depending on how much detail you want to add. So if you want to give this to someone for Valentine's Day, which is at the end of this coming week, you want to start sooner rather than later. With that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following: a heart box, a variety of black paper, specifically a lightly textured cardstock and a crepe paper, a variety of ribbons, a permanent glue stick, silicone molds, a hot glue gun, black glue sticks, a cutting mat and X-Acto knife, scissors, and optionally, some old metallic eyeshadow and some fixative spray. You can also add in different materials like rhinestones, gems, glitter, paint, really whatever speaks to you. I had a lot of these items on hand, or I purchased them at my local craft store, but I will provide my affiliate links in the description box below. When I started this project, I was a little zoned out, just thinking about everything going on. So I made some mistakes and choices that I ended up having to redo. So instead of showing you what not to do, I'm going to start where I was paying attention. I'm only giving you a heads up because you'll see the mistake after and I kind of have to explain why it's there, so now you know. I traced the bottom of the box onto a sheet of cardstock. Since I wanted the texture side facing out, I made sure to trace on the smooth side of the paper. I then cut out the heart with the scissors about 1/4 of an inch away from the line that I had traced. Then I went around and cut lines starting from that line going outward all the way around the heart, sort of making a fringe. Next, I covered the bottom and the bottom edges of the box with the glue stick and then placed the paper heart on it, smoothing out the paper across the bottom of the box and wrapping the cut paper edges around the edge of the box. I realized here that I should have cut a little bit further away from the tracing line, maybe 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, because these edges wouldn't stay glued down. I pulled out some tape and, working in small sections, taped down the edges so they stayed in place. Then I measured and marked the space on the side of the box that shows when the lid is on. These lids fit really tightly, so if you added paper up the whole wall, it would tear or not be able to get back on. I measured and cut out crepe paper to fit the walls and then hot glued the paper strips down. Now that the bottom was done, I came back to fix the lid that I had done earlier. I had so many gaps in between the side and the top of the lid because I didn't do that trick with folding the paper edges over the side. So I ripped off the paper that had been there, traced out and cut a new heart on cardstock, this time with about 1/2 inch of space away from the tracing line, added in the edge cut fringe, and then applied the glue stick and placed the paper heart. As you can see, I had already done the outer edge of the lid in the crepe paper, and because I had used hot glue, I knew it wouldn't come off easily. I also didn't think tape would hold well on that texture, so instead I very carefully hot glued that fringe down. If you're doing this at home, you won't have paper edges on the box lid yet, so do what we did previously on the bottom. Tape the paper edges down, then measure the side of the lid, cut paper to that size, and hot glue that down on top of it. I still wanted to hide my edges, so I added crepe paper back over the side of the lid. Again, you won't need to do this at home. This is me fixing my previous mistakes. Now I wanted to add in some detail, so I pulled out my lace wire ribbon and carefully glued it along the edge of the lid all the way around. Since the hot glue shows through the lace, I took out a black velvet ribbon and hot glued it down over that top edge, hiding the previous glue and also making the lid look more polished. From there, I decided I wanted to work on making some of the filigree elements, so I started adding hot glue into my silicone molds, aiming to keep them as flat and level as possible. I would put the mold on a flat surface in the fridge for 5 minutes to really solidify, and then I would pop them out of the mold, refill the mold, put it back in the fridge, and then start carefully cutting off the excess edges from the pieces I had just popped out. I used 3 different tools for this: large scissors, embroidery scissors, and an X-Acto knife. The larger scissors help you remove any large chunks, and the other 2 tools help you get into tight spaces. My best tip for this is to go slow, not only so you don't cut off too much on accident, but because it is very easy to cut yourself here. So be patient and intentional with each cut. Another good tip, you may have the urge to cut out the flatter center bits, the negative space around the relief or 3D sections, but I'd recommend leaving some of them in part because you don't need to do all that extra work, and also because you will need space on the backside for glue to go, and the less space there is, the harder that will be. You're going to keep making pieces, popping them out, and cutting for a while. This is definitely the most time-consuming part of the project. I actually had to take a break from this process for a moment, so I moved on to the bottom of the box. I added in the lace ribbon in the center of the paper on the bottom wall of the box, carefully adding in hot glue down the middle and pressing the ribbon into it. Again, this glue would show through the lace, so I pulled out the velvet ribbon and glued it down over that center line. Now it's time to attach the filigree hot glue pieces. I started to lay them out, but realized I wanted them to look a little more metallic, so I pulled out an old gold eyeshadow, eyeshadow, dipped my finger into it, and then buffed it onto the filigree pieces. To ensure that the eyeshadow wouldn't budge, I sprayed them with fixative spray off camera. Then I laid out the filigree pieces and started to add hot glue on the back and then held them in place while they set. I also added some filigree bits to the side over the velvet ribbon. Lastly, I added in some final details like the ribbon on the bottom of the box and a center medallion, and then I was done, which means it's time for the reveal. Here it is. I think it looks so much better than before. Definitely more dark, romantic, and spooky like I wanted. It kind of looks like a cake a little bit too, which I'm not mad at. As you can see, there's some cracks in my glue molds, but I was actually hoping for that because I wanted this to look a little more old and antique. However, if you want to avoid this, leave your glue in the mold once it's set. Put the mold down on a flat, heat-safe surface and take a heat gun out and just kind of go over back and forth. Let it reheat up and liquefy. Lightly tap the edges of the mold and then walk away and leave it. And hopefully it should come out more solid. Again, I like the sort of battered antique look, so this wasn't an issue for me, but now you know how to fix it. Now, if you're making this for your partner, especially if your partner is more goth or alternative, you could use this to put some candy in or whatever gift you're giving them, or it could be the gift on its own. I mean, I know if I got a box like this, I would be using it as decor. You could also do this project in different colors. In fact, there are tons of colors that hot glue comes in, and there's even glitter and metallic hot glue, so you could really go all out with this, doing gold or red or something just completely different. Speaking of, how would you approach this? Would you do fabric? Would you do paper or paint? Would you go for a dark romantic vibe like I did, or would you go the completely opposite direction and do something hot pink and glittery? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!